Hello, my friends. Welcome to an extremely special episode of the Party Nerds podcast, coming to you live from a triple secret location high in the Woodland Hills area of Los Angeles, California. Triple secret, Hollywoodland Hills. You know, to actually be in the Hollywood Hills, that's a different pay grade. I'm Richard Gabai. I'm here with my pal Robert Carradine, and we are joined today by an icon of television and features, and one of the most iconic movies of a generation, the great Chris Atkins. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Thank you. Nice to be here.
And Chris, you know, we have to get it, you know, right from the start. We're graced by your presence through our mutual friend, the great Don Carroll.
Yes.
Our mutual friend.
The great Don Carroll.
But we have a fun connection. The fun connection is that the same woman, Heidi, has cut our hair for years. So a shout out to Heidi.
Yes. Good old Heidi. She's great.
Yeah,
she's great. What a trip she is.
Yeah, she is. I met her. She was doing hair and makeup on a movie I was doing 35 years ago. And whatever it was, whenever she opened that salon, I found out I needed to get a haircut. And so I feel like I'm on set, you know, and she does a good job. She's a good friend and a wonderful person. And I don't know how it came up. She goes, "Oh, I guess you were still living in LA for a while. Where are you now?"
I'm in Connecticut.
Connecticut. Yeah, you were still in LA. She goes, "Oh, I cut Chris Atkins." I go, "Oh, my friend's his manager." That whole degrees of separation.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you know, and I hope you don't tire of talking about it, but the experience you must have had as a very young man making that iconic movie.
Yeah, well, that was kind of a shake-up in my world, that's for sure. I was 18 years old and just coming out of high school, and I was modeling with a Ford modeling agency, and next thing you know, I auditioned for a movie, and all I ever wanted to do was play baseball. That was my dream, was just to go play pro sports. And so I auditioned for this movie, The Blue Lagoon, and I thought this was really cool. And when this movie comes out, I can tell all my friends that, "Oh, I read those lines. Oh, yeah, I know what's going to happen," that kind of a thing. I thought that would be really cool. But never in a million years did I ever think that I would be the one that they cast. They auditioned over 4,000 kids for that role.
Wow.
So I have no idea. But a funny story, they kept coming back. So the audition process went, I went in, there was a whole bunch of us in the Columbia Pictures in New York City, and they're all laying in the halls and sitting around just reading their lines. I go in, do my thing. They call me back, and then they call me back, and then I didn't hear from them for a couple of months. And I figured, well, that's, you know, I didn't really care because I didn't know anything about making movies anyway. But then all of a sudden they call me back. Now at this point in time, it was summer and I had a bit of a tan because I was teaching sailing down at the beach. So now I had a tan, and Randall Kleiser, who directed the movie, calls. They said, "Can we want to see you again?" And I said, "Well, aren't you supposed to be out there shooting this picture by now?" And, "Well, we haven't found the right kid yet, and we'd like to see you again. Can you bring a blonde curly wig?" "Oh, sure. I have like lots of them on my countertop here. There's plenty of them in my closet." "What are you talking about?" So Mom happened to have some dead skunk looking thing in her closet, and so she pulled that out, and I brought that into New York City, and I did the audition. They wanted, Randall Kleiser always saw that character as a Greek Adonis with curly hair. So that's why they kept perming my hair constantly for that film. One, because it was out in the Fiji Islands, and between the salt air and the sun and everything, the humidity, it kept dropping. If you watch the movie, sometimes it's really curly, sometimes it's dropped. And it was just because they kept perming it the whole time. By the time I was done with that movie, I looked like Albert Einstein with my freaking hair all broken and sticking straight up. It was just terrible. Man.
But so it was the weather. It wasn't because Brooke Shields was around that your hair would curl and then be really out and then be really down. How long were you out there shooting that? That experience had to be incredible.
Well, it was incredible. So, all right, I'll tell you the story. So, like I said, I never thought I would ever be an actor in a million years. My whole family are doctors. My sister's a PhD in cellular biology at Yale University. My brother's an emergency room. Well, now he's a concierge doctor in New York City, and he specializes in ultrasound emergency medicine out of Yale. And I was going to go into sports medicine because I had so many knee surgeries. So the last thing I ever thought of was I was going to be in the movie business, be an actor. I didn't even want to be a model, but one of the mothers of I was teaching sailing to of these little kids took pictures of me and sent me into her modeling agency. And the next thing I know, I got two jobs with that, and then that ended up with Ford. And an interesting story. I'm rambling now, but an interesting story was I had this meeting with Joey Hunter at the Ford Modeling Agency, who ran the men's division. And so I was like 16, 17, and I went in New York City and I got lost in the agency and I ended up in the women's division. Now, of course, I'm a hormone hopping 17-year-old, so I was perfectly happy sitting there just waiting to figure out what was happening next. And this woman leans her head around the corner, and her name was Claudia Black. And she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to see Joey Hunter. Well, he's up on the third floor, but you look too young to be in the men's division. Why don't you come back? I run the children's division." So I go up there, come back down, see Claudia, and she says, "Hey, listen, I have a go-see," they called it back then, to at J.C. Penney. Would you like to do it? And I said, "Yeah, what do I got to lose?" So I went over to J.C. Penney and I did this go-see where they do test shots, and it was with Lori Loughlin, who was in Full House and all that when she was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I walk back to Ford and I walk in and they said, "Hey, you booked the job." I said, "Really?" So I ended up getting that job. Now, Claudia started the children's division with Brooke Shields. So Brooke Shields and Claudia started the children's division. I moved here to Connecticut. This is now 5 years ago. So we're talking 40 plus years later, and I'm fishing off a bridge down here. It's a little mill, a beautiful little spot. And this car pulls up, and the window goes down. And a lady asks for directions. And I come over and say, "Hey, I just kind of moved here. I really don't know where I'm doing." And she looks at me and she said, "Blue Lagoon?" And I went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And she goes, "Chris, it's Claudia."
Wow.
40 years later, here's Claudia and her husband, and they're antiquing, and they got lost. And out of nowhere, it's me and her. And she's like, "Chris, all I remember is sending you and Brooke care packages out there on the island." So that was kind of special. It was sort of a full circle because I always wondered what happened to her. And here she is. And now we talk constantly and everything. It was really kind of cool. But that's how the whole world started. And then of course I was one of 4,000 kids, but I had a scuba license. I had this tan. I had the curly hair on my head, and they called me up. So what ended up happening was I got a Jordache Jean commercial, and now I'm really cool because I'm gonna be on TV, right? So I
Right.
got this commercial. I shoot the commercial. The next day, I get a call back from Columbia Pictures or from the casting people, and they said, "Hey, you've got the part." And I went, "Hey, look, I'm playing on the Ford modeling softball team. I'm going to be late for my train. I can't talk to you right now." And they said, "No, no, no, no. You have the movie." I said, "I don't know anything about making. I'm going to be late. I'm playing softball on the team. I got to go." And they said no. So they convinced me to stay. They talked to me about it, and I talked to my mom about it and the whole thing. And she just basically said to me, "Hey, if you don't like it, you don't ever have to do it again." So of course the big thing was the nudity and the whole deal. And I'm from Rye, New York, Westchester, very conservative. And I said, I don't know. I always saw life as an adventure. That was me. Everything is an adventure. So I always said, he with the most stories wins, because you've got stories, you've lived a life, you've had adventure. So that's the way I go. Anyway, I figured, hey, what do I got to lose? But what was cool about it was the crew tell me if I'm talking too much, but the crew on the shoot were all Australians, young Australians. And back then it was topless beaches in Australia and Europe. So they were all running around topless. I ended up not having too much of a problem as time went on. Now, Literally, we were on a deserted island. So no movie was ever made this way, and no movie will ever be made this way. I lived in a tent for 4.5 months on a deserted island in Fiji. So
Oh
that's how we
man.
shot the movie. The whole crew lived in a tent. They built platforms and put their tents on these platforms, and they called it Tent City. And that's where it was. Actually, there was nothing on the island. Obviously, that's why we're living in tents. And the owner of the island had built something for himself, but they did build what they called a bure for Brooke and her mom and Nestor Almendros, who was the director of photography. And then they built an editing suite facility. And then the crew, actually, I was living on the ship for the first 2 weeks, and they'd take me back over the reef on a dinghy, on a little boat. And then the crew actually found water on there. They were shipping water in on a barge, and they actually found water on the island. And the next thing you know is now we had water and the whole deal. So that was the Blue Lagoon, was an actual roughing it situation, but it was wonderful. It was really a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Well, it sure sounds incredible. I mean, I did this show where they were trying to make believe I lived on a deserted island, and people to this day want to know if I still live on the deserted island. So I'm really glad I'm not the only one that was on a deserted island.
But and also, I mean, it was kind of interesting to hear because I didn't know. I mean, I saw the movie and I remember which was pretty mind blowing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe so it was really your first movie, right?
Yeah, it was my first film.
And that year, I think you presented at the Oscars.
Yeah, well, it was after the Pirate movie in 1982 with Christy McNichol. There's a funny story to that too, because I was young and dumb. Now I'm old and dumb, and so I was presenting the Oscars for Best Sound with Christy McNichol. Carol Burnett's daughter wanted to go to the Academy Awards with me. And of course, I was a huge fan of Carol Burnett. And Lucille Ball, one day on an airplane from New York to LA, I had my son, who was just a little child, little baby at the time. And Lucille Ball took him from me and started walking around the airplane. And that was a big deal. Well, Carol Burnett was one of the all-time greats also. So, of course, I said yes. Now, during rehearsal, I was sitting next to Chevy Chase, and he turns to me, he says, what are you doing? And I'm saying, I'm giving out for Best Sound. And he goes, oh, what would be really funny is if you went, and the Best Sound are. So I said, oh, yeah, it's really funny. I go to Carol's house to get in the limo with them and the whole thing to go to the Academy Awards. And I mentioned to her what he said, and she goes, oh, you've got to do that. That's so funny, blah, blah, blah. We rehearsed that thing the whole way in the car in 1982. Oh, my God. So what idiot gets up in front of the entire planet and goes, and the nominee are, and it just crickets. Just except for Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett's sitting there going, ah, like this, and everybody else. I get off stage, and Joe Hamilton, her husband at the time, comes up to me and he says, "Man, you did that so well. Everybody was running around back here thinking there was a real sound problem." And I was just known
You were
for
too good an actor.
I was just known for a guy running down a beach in a diaper. They don't know me as a comedian or anything. So yeah, and my brother, I think, found the YouTube video of it years later. Hey, gosh.
Just now, when you were doing that moment again, you're great at it.
Yeah, that worked.
That
man.
works.
Yeah.
So when you were out there on the island, so you basically were living the Blue Lagoon, other than that there was a crew there. It was real. Were you out there by yourself?
Yeah, I was. I was 18, just turned 18, graduated from high school, was supposed to go to Denison University in Ohio, and I was going to be back supposedly in time to get to college, but we ended up not getting back in time, so I deferred a year, and then that never happened. But I was by myself, and of course, it was that beautiful moment where you get that. I'm the oldest, and then I have two brothers and a sister, and I got that first baby leaving the nest letter from mom and the whole thing, and I go off, and I've really never, maybe Canada, been out of the United States, and here I'm I mean, literally, I got the movie, I think on a Friday they called me up, and then on a Saturday or the Sunday they flew me out to California, and then Tuesday I was heading to Fiji. So
Wow.
it went really, really, really quick.
How long were you in Fiji?
4.5 months.
Oh, okay.
It was a long time away from home. Now, Columbia Pictures did fly my mom and my brother out for 2 weeks at one point in time, which was really nice.
I graduated high school in '82, so I just remember, and it's different. It was different then. When a movie came out then, almost any movie, it seemed like a bigger deal than when a movie comes out now, no matter how much they seem to promote it, just in my eyes anyway. But when Blue Lagoon came out, that's all anyone was talking about.
Yeah, look, I had no idea what I was getting into. At this point in time, I still have no idea what I'm getting into. But back then, 18 years old, I do this movie. Brooke was 14, turned 15 on the island. It was just us on this tiny little island. And I come home and all my friends are gone. They're all at college. And literally it was one of those moments where I'm home alone, everybody's gone, and nothing. It was just no communication with the film industry, nothing. It was just dead silence. And I kept thinking, did I really do that? Did was that a fantasy? Was that real? It was just so bizarre that first few months. And then things started cranking up and I had to go learn that how to do ADR and all that kind of stuff. And then Columbia Pictures put me through the machine of how to, for publicity's sake, and what to deal with and how to do that. And then before I know it, the movie's coming down to being out. Now I had no idea it was going to change my entire life the way that it did. I literally, when that movie came out, there was not a place on this earth that I could go, not a corner, without somebody recognizing me. I mean, at two different times, Texas and New Orleans, I literally had my hair pulled, my shirt ripped off my back, and the security had to run me and shove me into a car and get me out of there. And they were climbing on the car. That's how insane it was. Like a Beatles moment. It was really crazy. It was absolutely crazy. As a matter of fact, the director, Randall, said to me one day, he goes, "Hey, do you want to go?" Well, first of all, it was really cool because it was one of the last of the big movie premieres. They closed off Hollywood Boulevard. They opened it in the Cinerama Dome. It was this big premiere, the red carpets, limo after limo. They had fire eaters and pig roasters and all this Fijian stuff in the parking lot going on. It was a big, big deal. And then they had these two 25-foot tall cardboard cutouts of me and Brooke in our diapers standing there out on the sidewalk. And Randall called me up one day and he said, "Hey, you want to go check out the line?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go with you." So we got in a car and we went to a restaurant across the street from the Cinerama Dome. And that line went from out of the box office all the way down the sidewalk, around the side of the Cinerama Dome and down the street. It was a Star Wars line. It was unbelievable. It was really unbelievable. But
Did you say
I had
pig
no idea it
roasting?
was going to. Yeah,
They were roasting pigs?
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby, is that what
That's
happened to you
that.
after the premiere of Revenge of the Nerds? Anywhere you were going, women are ripping your shirt off.
Well, it was just short of ripping my shirt off.
What an incredible experience! And you were nominated for Golden Globe, and it wasn't that year you presented, so it was the next year. Because I remember
Yeah,
all this from my
yeah.
first becoming like a film fan, and I'm gonna make movies, and we're gonna make a movie. In fact, I think Bobby was saying he's attached to a movie that you're attached to make. But so you go to the
Yes,
Golden
I'm very-
Globe. The Golden Globes had to be incredible.
Well, the Golden Globes were great. Look, you got to understand, I didn't know anything. I had no idea what a Golden Globe was. I wasn't a film buff. I wasn't anything like that. I just went along for the ride, right? So the big talk was that Timothy Hutton won it for Ordinary People, which he should have won it for Ordinary People. That was a remarkable performance he gave. But the whole there was this brouhaha because that movie wasn't coming out the year that Blue Lagoon was, and he got nominated, and the Blue Lagoon show, that kind of a thing. But to be honored with a Golden Globe nomination, and the picture was also nominated for Cinematography Academy Award.
It's a beautiful film. Yeah.
Supposedly, it's now a classic picture, a classic movie in the Library of Congress.
Wow, as it should be.
As it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's iconic, and not to beat it to death, but I mean, also because I'm that age, I was in high school. Like, it's iconic. I mean, you say Blue Lagoon, like everyone was in love with Brooke Shields. Everyone wanted to be Chris Atkins.
Yeah, look, like I said, I was going for the ride, and what a ride it was.
Let's take a moment and appreciate that smile and that expression.
Oh,
what a
yeah.
ride it was. And you look fantastic. Obviously, it's still treating you well. Did you jump right into the pirate movie? Did that come right in?
No. As a matter of fact, it was really kind of interesting because I did a little TV movie I was dating Diane Lane at the time, and Diane Lane, Helen Hunt. It was called Child Bride of Short Creek, and I did that right after. And as you will remember, back then, movie stars didn't do TV, and my manager got slammed for putting me in that TV movie. Then I also did Dallas, but I did Dallas after the pirate movie. And that was a whole nother thing why he kept putting me into TV. But man, that Child Bride was one of my best performances. I just loved that movie. It was about polygamy in Utah and everything. It was really, really well done. Columbia Pictures, after Blue Lagoon, put me under contract for 4 years. It was the first time since a studio had put an actor under a contract since the old MGM days. And then they made a big deal about that. And then I just sat around doing nothing for weeks waiting for something to happen. And then we figured that the reason why they put me under that contract was to hold me for a Blue Lagoon 2, which never happened. 20th Century Fox bought me out of that contract to do the pirate movie in A Night in Heaven. So I did the pirate movie in Australia with Christy McNichol, who is still a dear friend to this day. I just adore her. And that freaking film, that movie is so bizarre because it didn't do well at the box office at all. But there is a massive cult following. I can't tell you. Most of my autographs today, or that people come up to me, are pirate movie and not Blue Lagoon, which just blows my mind. And they watch this as a religious, not religious, but I mean religiously over and over and over. And then their kids watch it, and I mean it's just crazy. But it was off the hook movie, and shot that in Australia for 6 months. I was there.
Wow.
And I got a gold album from a song that I sang in the movie.
Yeah, you got a gold record.
And I got a gold record. And I thank God for machines because they can make a dog sing. But yeah, so that was quite. I had to fence. I had to learn fencing, and that was pretty funny because we had to do fencing and singing and dancing and all of this stuff and I'm such a klutz at dancing so much that they always, I'm the star of the movie and they put me in the back behind all the pirates, but the fencing was really interesting because I had to learn to fence, and the Ted Hamilton, the Pirate King, he never showed up for rehearsals. So when we had to do our fencing bits, you're supposed to go left, and he'd end up going right. I had welts all over me from these freaking sword fights. And then we had to sword fight on the top of this castle, Werribee Park in Australia. And literally, it was just I mean, we're on the edge of this building that's 60 feet up, or however it was. It was really tall. And the stunt guys, the Australian stunt guys, are all running underneath us with a mat, going, "We got you, we got you."
Oh man,
that was back then. So yeah, that was pretty fun though. It was a fun movie to shoot, I got to tell you. And I'm sure Carradine there will tell you that there's only a few movies that you end up when you see the people from that movie, you just it's old home week. And Blue Lagoon and the Pyro movie were those two for me.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
no, I
every
hear
time
you,
you see
man.
somebody,
Yeah, because
yeah,
the whole nerd thing, man. Every time we get together, it's like no time has passed, and we're talking 40 years
yeah,
ago.
it's great. It really is. And there's very few. I mean, heck, you do one after another after whatever, and there's just a few that for whatever reason they're just special.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
those two were it.
And,
Those two were it.
and there aren't too many performers who can say they were starred in a hit movie, have a gold record, and also a hit TV show. You mentioned Dallas. You know, our mutual friend Andrew Stevens was on
Yes.
Dallas. I mean, that's a great another iconic show.
Yeah, and that was another thing. I told you, my manager got slammed for putting me in a TV show at that time, and of course now everybody's doing commercials. But
Right.
that was a wild scenario. Now I only signed for 1 year because I was supposed to do a play on Broadway with Gina Lollobrigida, The Rose Tattoo. So I signed only for 1 year. Usually they signed for 2 years, I think was the minimum. Um, but it turned out to be another, as you said, that show was iconic, but that season happened to be iconic because it Linda Gray was the first cougar. It was the younger guy, older woman, and we were splashed over Us magazine, Robbing the Cradle, and all. I mean, everywhere. It was such a big deal. And I was in the Bahamas, and I'm walking through the casino, and I see this woman, and you can tell, boy, you can just tell. And I look at her, and she's walking straight at me, and she comes right up into my face and says, "You're too young for her." I went, "Oh, okay." But I'll tell you a funny story. So those people Larry Hagman and Patrick Duffy, the whole crew were nuts. They were all nuts, and they were a fun nuts. They were just total practical jokers and the whole thing. But I'll tell you, when I got on the show, I had to go for my photo shoot, and I show up in Culver City at the sound stage, and I'm walking on the stage and down the hallway, and must have had 50 pounds of clothes hanging off my shoulder, and I'm walking down, and here comes Larry Hagman coming towards me. And he comes right up to me and he goes, "Hey, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you on the show. And let me take those for you and I'll show you where you go." And I turned to my manager, I go, "Larry Hagman's carrying my clothes." And he took this 50-pound of clothes and hung them in the closet and welcomed me. I mean, and that was how I met Larry Hagman. It just, I mean, what a guy. And then the funny story was, so my big moment in Dallas was the culmination of my relationship with Linda Gray or Sue Ellen, and we had our big kiss, right? So it was out on a dock and on this little lake, and the cast were all standing around. No, usually everybody goes home, and they're all standing around, and so they say action, and we go up, and we have this big kiss. Cut. And Linda turns to me and she goes, "So how was it?" I'm thinking, well, what kind of a question? How do I answer that? It sucked. Let's do it again. I mean, what do you say? And all of a sudden, my lips go completely numb. And I'm sitting there going, "What did you do? What's going on?" And everybody's laughing. And Linda had put that numbing stuff they put on your guns before the dentist gives you the shot
Oh man.
to ease the shot. She put it all over her lips for our big kiss. And that was Welcome to Dallas.
Oh
Oh
man,
man.
that's cruel.
Hey,
It's so cruel.
you mentioned your photo shoot for Dallas, but I mean, let's face it. I think it's big news that in 2025 there was like a 45th anniversary of Blue Lagoon in Playgirl, right? You had done it when you were a young guy, and I'm assuming I haven't looked, but I'm assuming the July 2025 shoot is it more tame or?
Well, yeah, that was. I get this message from Playgirl, and I thought it was a spam thing or somebody making fun, and then I looked at the link, and it was really Playgirl, and so I wrote him back and I said, "Yeah, what's up?" And they said, well, it's Blue Lagoon's 45th anniversary, and we'd like to honor the movie. We know you did Playgirl 43 years ago, where I actually did a nude layout. We'd like to do another cover and another layout. And I said to the guy, I go, you do know how old I am, right? They said, yeah. No. You get to keep your clothes on this time. And I said, oh, thank God. I said, well, I always told everybody there's going to be a day where I'm actually going to get to keep my clothes on in a movie. Finally, I think I'm here. So my buddy Greg Gorman, who's probably one of the top 3 photographers in the entire planet, and I've known since I was 18, calls me up and he says, hey, we're going to do this. And I said, oh, you're going to shoot it? And he said, yeah. And right then I knew they were going to be really classy, artsy pictures. So they were all sort of gallery piece pictures. But yeah, it's kind of funny when I can go around saying, hey, I just did a layout in Playgirl. And everybody starts laughing.
Well, I don't know. You've got a worldwide group of fans, including me and Bobby.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that maybe you and Bobby have a project in the future that we don't want to talk about yet. But I thank you so much for your time. There aren't too many artists that have, like I said, a gold record, hit TV shows, hit feature film.
Golden Globe nomination.
Golden Globe nominated. And had they skipped a year, probably Golden Globe winner. Chris, thanks so much for your time. The great Chris Atkins, everybody.
Yeah.
You guys are great. Thank you very much.
Sincerely appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up an extremely special episode of the Party Nerds Popcast. I'm Richard Gabai, Robert Carradine, special guest Christopher Atkins. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Like and subscribe.